Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Business Intelligence and Data Warehousing past chapter. This is one of our September sessions. I'm pleased to introduce another member of the UK SQL Server community, John Martin, who's going to give us a session on reporting services. But before John starts, we have got some SQL Saturday news to give you. So there's some up-and-coming North America events. So for example, we have Salt Lake City on the 7th of September, and I'm very pleased to say that we have Cambridge on the 28th of September. That's Cambridge in the UK, of which John is one of the organisers, so we're especially pleased to welcome him here today. Up-and-coming international events, Milan, Brazil, Johannesburg. It's fantastic that SQL Pass is such a wonderful international community. So here we have some virtual chapter meetings that might interest you. So today we have data-driven formatting in SSRS, and on September the 18th, which is tomorrow, we also have the Global Russian Virtual Chapter meeting. Now I'm sorry, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the Russian there, but I'm sure someone can do that for me. Then finally, this Friday we have Alan Mitchell, someone else who's very well known in the SQL Server community. He will be giving a session in Pig, which is one of the languages in the Hadoop ecosystem. So we look forward to welcoming Alan as well. Just in case you're interested, we have a number of virtual chapters here in the SQL Pass virtual chapter world. We have quite a few. We have the numbers growing all the time. So some to call out to you. You might be interested to know there's a business analytics one. There's also a book readers one as well, which I think is quite an interesting one. I love the informal feel of that one. We have big data as well, and we even have some in different languages. So we have global Chinese, Spanish and Russian. Now, one last item to mention is the volunteer recognition programs. If you have come across a member of the SQL Server community who's been an outstanding volunteer, then why not nominate them to the volunteer recognition program for SQL Pass? Now, there's the email address, so we have volunteerrecognition@sqlpass.org. One final note is next month we have the Pass Summit on October 15th to the 18th, and I'm very glad to be presenting there, and I look forward to seeing you all there. So what we will do now is I'm going to hand over to John for his session on data-driven in SSRS, and in case anybody's interested in becoming a member of SQL Pass, it is free. You get a free membership at sqlpass.org, and there's many different ways in which you can communicate with us. So without any further ado, I will hand over to John, and I will let John introduce himself, and finally just want to say a big thank you to John for his session today.
Okay, hello everybody. Can you hear me? Hello? Right then, let's see what we've got going on here. Hello, make this disappear. Oh, no. Get rid of that. Okay, right, hello everybody, sorry about that. Right, thank you for taking the time to join the webinar. This is the first one I've done, so I'm used to speaking in front of people and getting some feedback, so we'll see how this goes. If I ask you questions, I'm sorry. Feel free to type them over. I'm sure Jen will see them there. Right then, my session is going to be on data-driven formatting with reporting services, primarily making use of expressions within the system. Something that a lot of people tend to get on with, so I should hopefully be able to explain in a way that a lot of people can understand. If not, obviously send some questions over to Jen and we'll try and answer them for you. So who am I? John Martin. I'm a senior BI developer at the moment for a company called HTech based on the south coast of England in the UK. We do loyalty products, payment processing, that type of thing, so working PCI on very large sort of data sets. I'm on Twitter, SQL Server Monkey. Feel free to sort of follow. I'll follow back. If you've got any queries or questions about anything in the content of this session, please feel free to drop me an email. As you see, it's up there on the slides, and the slides will be given to Jen afterwards anyway, so she can send them out to everybody. I've been working with SQL Server for, well, at least 6 years now, working DBA, operations, development side of things, SQL Server development and BI development, working purely with SQL Server but also with other things such as the Dynamics Suite from Microsoft as well. Main areas that I'm really interested in and enjoy are performance tuning and high availability. So, if we move on, what we're going to be covering? Well, we're going to be covering reporting services, how to use expressions to control formatting and other elements of reporting services. Just about every property within reporting services can be manipulated with an expression. So it is very versatile and allows you to do an awful lot rather than hard coding things in and so on and so forth. That in turn makes report creation a bit simpler if you've got a standard template that you can use, and it just comes down to getting people to set the values for the expressions rather than finding out font sizes, colors, that sort of thing. And all of that's driven from database, really. I've got a few tables I put into the report server database. I would just like to point out now that not supported by Microsoft. You can take the ideas, create your own report server formatting database, if you will, and pop the tables in there. I just find it easier to keep it all together there. Like I say, they're just presented through data sets into the reports themselves as another form of data that we can use. So, why? The reason I started looking at this is because I worked at one point for a large company with a large number of reports, and then one day our marketing department came to me and said, we'd love to change the color on the headers of the tables, and we've got a new corporate font, so if you could just go and change all of the reports that you've done for us, and we'll get that done. So there I am thinking, yeah, it's not a problem. 200 reports later, I changed my opinion. It's not much fun. By having a lot of that data in the back end in the database, it can make life a lot easier for you. It will reduce deployments when you make a change in the database. It cascades through without having to change the reports in Visual Studio and then deploy them. Again, that can reduce development time, both creating and then maintaining the reports, in that you only need to get the structure of the report together. And then you're looking to be able to drive the colors, the fonts, the logos, that sort of thing from the back end, so you can put the reports out a lot more rapidly and then just tie them into existing color schemes and so on and so forth, which again then helps with a consistent approach to formatting. If you've got a team of report developers that are looking to put reports out, then without making sure, bringing someone up to speed in that environment can take a bit of time. This way you just tell them how to do it once and then everything comes through. And it's quite easy to back out changes if you put in the wrong colors or something like that, or the wrong fonts, or so on and so forth. It's mainly driven for formatting, this one, rather than the underlying data or the main structure of things like tables that you're going to see in the reports. Expressions. As I mentioned earlier, you can provide values in the every property. So it's from fonts, colors, font weights, values to place into title blocks, headers, footers. There's a number of system variables that you can use, such as executed time, who executed it, and so on and so forth, that you can all bring in and through expressions look to try and set those properties. They're calculated at execution time, which means they're dynamic in nature, as well as dynamic as you can get reporting services to be. So it makes the initial development of the report interesting. I tend to find setting them up manually first and then switching over be the best way for that. The syntax within expressions is similar to sort of that Visual Basic, .NET, that side of things, and we'll cover that when we go into sort of some of the demos not too long. There's an awful lot of functions built in there for handling text and data types, so handling data conversions and so on and so forth, so you don't have to do that back in the database. You can do it up in the presentation layer, which makes life a little bit easier. One of the things as well that expressions allow you to do is to allow you to put sort of dynamic information into the headers and footers, which typically you can't do. You can't take the output of a data set and plug it into a field in the header. In order to do that, you need to be able to sort of work around, either set it as a variable or a parameter that is then passed into the header for sort of a portion of the report in order to make it work. And again, I've got an example of that. And one of the things that you can do with them, which I'm not going to demonstrate here, but is you can actually use expressions to create dynamic data sources. And there's another few bits and pieces that I've done about sort of management reports for how my SQL servers are performing, that I just installed them with a list of servers in one place and dynamically created the data sources so that it would go to the relevant server, the appropriate database, and execute the queries that I was after. So just a quick look at the expressions window before we jump into the demos. Here we have the typical sort of window you're going to get with the values that you put at the top. So it always starts with an equals, and then you can query pretty much anything there. In this instance, you can get other report items, so you can reference other text boxes within the report. Again, as an example I will be showing soon. As you can see down at the bottom, you've got a number of functions and various other sort of calculations and such like that are built into the system there. So text functions, you can format. A lot of it's centered around formatting at that point there, but date and time. Math ones. Aggregates are interesting as well, because if you're dealing with data sets outside of a data region such as a tablix or table, then you're only able to really pull one record from a data set, which is where you, using the aggregate functions, you can actually cheat a little bit to get the data out. And other than that, there's a whole raft of other bits and pieces in there that I strongly recommend you go and have a look at. So, demos. Right, here we go. We'll fire up Visual Studio. Just to quickly run you through the environment we've got here. I've got the Visual Studio environment that I will be doing some of the demonstration in, the development and testing. I've got reporting services running locally on the machine, and here it is. So we've got some deployed reports already, just in case my demos don't go as I plan. So that's all there. So that's up and live as well. And obviously we've then just got Management Studio there so that I can jump in and show you just what's behind the scenes. So if we look up here in the top left corner, we'll start with some of the changes that I've made to the database just in order to be able to drive the system that we're looking at here. I've created a new schema basically so that they're distinct. These items are distinct from what lives within the report server database. Just so I know what I've created is the main reason for that. And there are a number of tables here that are reference tables that contain configuration data. So for example, the color palette, if we just pull the top 1000 rows there, you can see I have laboriously gone through and got every single color that you will be able to choose from the UI and put them into here. So there's 142 of them, 140-ish with the non and whites and so on and so forth. We've got those there. Again, the same goes for the font family, which we have here. So it's not all of the fonts in this instance. I've just got some main ones that I typically see and some of the ones that I use. Font weights again, line types. So those are ones that are the values that you'll typically find in some of the fields when you're using expressions or when you're trying to configure a report. There are some other ones here that I've created that actually drive the system. So report classification. One of the things working in compliance environments I'm very keen on is document marking. So one of the things you'll notice in my reports is that all the reports have got a marking of some form. These are just examples for the purposes of this demo. Right. Now then, the main table that drives everything here is the report detail table. If we select the top 1000 rows at this, we've just got the 3 reports. Now, this I've got being populated by a trigger on the catalog table, which is the one that when you deploy a report, that's where it goes, and that's where the main record lives. So what it does is it pulls some of the information out of there and drops it in here. The link there is on the GUID that Microsoft insist on using in some of their internal databases, which is always fun for fragmentation. Not too bad in reporting services so far, unless you're deploying lots of reports all the time. As you can see here, we've got a link to a color scheme, a classification. There's a global font family, so say Verdana or Arial, that sort of thing for the report. When I'm doing the information, when I run the reports, a lot of the queries that generate the data sets actually go in looking for the RDL name. Now there's a little gotcha with this one. When testing through Visual Studio, the first period or point within the RDL name is where it will stop. So if this was to, for example, be separated AW dot order detail summary report, the RDL when it comes in from Visual Studio will just be called AW as far as the external variables are concerned. When you run it through the web UI, it actually maintains the full name. So that's just a little thing, that's why they're named the way they are. We've got the report title. Now this is the one that will appear within the report. So it's easy for us to change the name of the report that's displayed. The RDL and such like is fixed when you do the deployment, obviously. Subtitle if you want. And the tablets configuration. Now we'll run through the tablets configuration shortly. Again, it's just another data table, as you can see over here. And finally, a report image. So in this instance, if we come across to, we'll have a quick look at the color scheme. There it is. As you can see here, we just have a single color scheme. So you've got the report titles, classifications, color palettes, that sort of thing. So this is the global color scheme for the report, which is there. And finally into the tablets configuration. Here we've got two. At the top row here, if I just make this a bit wider so we can see a few more. I've broken it down so we've got headers, backgrounds. So the header, you've got the background for the color, the text colors. You can change if you decide to do odd and even row stuff. I haven't got the example here, but some people do like the report set out that way. The font family, and then it moves into group totals, body, that sort of thing. I've got one called default, which is what the trigger picks up on. Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. That's what drives a lot of this. So if I come out of Management Studio, and what we'll look at here now, for those of you that have used reporting services before, this should be something that's quite familiar. We've got the standard report here with the background. We've got a table in the middle. We've got the title. We've got a logo that is embedded. We've got, as I say, I'm very keen on document marking, so we've got a classification there. So we've got the header area, and we've got the footer area. In the footer, I've got just some information there, so using internal parameters and variables, sorry, for who executed it, when they executed it, and this one down here is a page number calculation. So as you can see here, I've manually specified the font weight, the font, the color, so on and so forth. Okay. Now then, touching on expressions quickly, page numbers. We want to know typically how many we've got and of how many in a large report. So if we have a look at this, we right click on it and go to expression. As you can see here, basic expression. I've got the word page, and then looking at the global, let's see, here we go. Nope. We're at built-in field, sorry. Here we go. We have page number, which is in here, and total pages. So cancel that. Your typical report. So if I preview this right now, here we go. Let's make that disappear. Should As you can see, we now have data in the table. It's sorted. What was expressions and such like, now they're populated, so you'd see I executed at this point in time, and it's one page of one. Okay. From here, obviously, we can look to drill through to other reports. So I've gone from the sales order summary to the sales order details. Again, similar in its approach, same colors, same fonts, same styling, same image. From here, we can drill through again into the sales detail report. This one, it's got the title, logo, all of that, as you can see right there. So that one's a static report. This one's a static report. This is the big one that's already been formatted. It's already been set up so that it was configured to be driven by the data, if you will. So what we've got here, as you can see, it's very, very bland. It's very, very white. It gives you no indication of just what is going on with it. So if we look at this, we'll highlight the row. So one of the things we want is a background color. So if we come across to properties, I'll just come down here, background color. Come on, there we go. Click into the field, click the drop down. You get the choice of no color, you can pick from there more, or you get the choice of expression. Okay, so what do we do? In this instance, we click on expression, and as I mentioned earlier, because we're not operating inside of something like a table or tablets and such like, we have to use the aggregates to ensure that we're only dealing with one value. So in this instance, I tend to use first. And what we're doing is we're pulling fields from a specific data set. So I'm looking for the tablet's header background color name from this data set. So by putting that in there, I can generate the colors. So if I close that out, if we come across to here we go. This is the data set, which is a shared data set I've got up on the server there. So if we just double click on that, that should give us this. Make that a bit bigger. As you can see, it's just a standard SQL query going into the database, pulling out the information I'm after. Now, obviously the tablet's configuration is very big. In this instance, I'm only pulling in the header information because that's all I want to look at formatting at this point in time. We have the color name, bring in the color hex as well for the header, the text color, the font family. Now, this is something where I look to override if it's set to a default, basically, if it's set to use the report default. So that makes life a little bit more easier. Makes it a little bit more versatile. So if I want to have fonts for, say, the headers, but also then different ones for the actual data that's being displayed, it can all be done here. We scroll down, as you can see, join all tables, and this bit here is where it does the interesting bit. The RDL name. Now this is the bit that I went in. Like I said, we pull the RDL name across. We set that as a parameter, so much as you would when in a standard SQL query, you set that there. If we come across to here, the parameter for it is called RDL name. It's got a data type of text, and we set it to a default value. Now in this instance, again, we go using the expression, and by using the, give me a second, report name, there it is. This is the actual name of the report, so you can get that information and will drive into the system, into the backend database, as I've done, to restrict the query so I'm only looking at the data specifically for the report that I'm executing. So if I've got a number of reports with different formatting, and it's specified as an internal read-only parameter, which is why you don't see it at report execution time like you do with the other ones in the reports I've shown you. Okay, so that's the report, as we said. So how do we go about setting this up? Well, what we'll do then is we'll look across to here, and we'll start with this one. So as I said earlier, it's quite simple. I want to change this now from the static report that I've built to get an idea and get a feel for just what it's going to look like. So if I come in here, first and foremost actually, I need to bring the data sets in. So I want to use share data set, pull in the report details. So put in report config, report detail we'll call it. Okay, and then we'll add the other shared data sets where shared data sets come into their own. Okay, and report config. There we go. If I spell things right, there we go. So they'll come in now. So now that we've actually brought the data sets into the report, we can go and configure things. So I want to change the background color of that. We'll take that out. And okay, where are we? Fields, order, summary, data sets. That's what I wanted. Sorry. There goes the table, and then we are after header background color name. As you can see, just double click on that, and in it comes. The result of that is the formatting drops out. Now, obviously, I specified white text on top of that. So I now need to change that to make it a little bit better so I can see it again. So we'll take that out, datasets, tablets, text color. We'll take the hex in this instance. So you can take either the hex or the color name. So if you're making your own colors, then you can use the hex there as well. We'll come down, we want to change the font in, yet again, use the drop down into the expression, into dataset. Here we go, font family name, and then that goes in there. And we want font weight, expression, datasets, header, and font weight name. There we go. And, oh, no, don't want that one. I want font size. Datasets. Now this is one where I'll change the sum to a first. The reason it's gone to sum is because it's an integer-based field basically, so it's an integer value in there. So if we just change that, okay. So as you can see, it's getting a little bit more bland. Now, as you can see earlier, I showed you it was a standard AdventureWorks logo that I've embedded into the report. Now, one of the problems I've faced, like I said, is large numbers of reports need to be changed when they're all branded in a similar sort of way. Having a standard embedded image can be a bit of a nightmare. Now, one of the other options you can do, if we come in, right-click on the image in this instance, we've got image properties, is you can have an external one, or you can store it in the database. The images, I find, if they're of any quality, then you're going to be large, which doesn't lend itself really to going into the database as sort of blobs, or if obviously you could use things like file table or file stream now. However, if you use external, you can specify a URL, and obviously if you then got that out on a web server somewhere, it makes it a little bit easier to change, but then obviously you are then bound to changing that one image for all reports if you don't want to do that. The other option is to make use of the expression. If we come to data sets, we look at the report detail. I have the report logo here as well. So we click on that, and it disappears, and you just get the standard placeholder there. Now then, one of the things we can do here, sales order summary. That's the title of the report. Now, again, it's static. It's in the system. We don't want to keep hold of it. There we go. So what do we want to do? Okay, we'll set it as an expression. That's better. So what we want to do is go down, data sets, report detail, report title. So we're in there, and you say it's an expression. Okay, so now if we preview this, we should see some of the colors and everything coming back. There we go. As you can see, we've now got our colors back, we've got a title, we've got our logo. Okay. So if we come in here, we'll set the classification. Come on. Set report classification here. Now then, if we preview that again, we can see it's unclassified. Okay. One of the things I try to avoid is using the same, it's basically repeating myself over and over. Now I have a classification top and bottom. If we look in here, this is the image that I showed in the first, in the slides basically, whereby we can look to reference another report item. So I drive text box 2 with the data, and then I link other areas of the report to that text box where I need to look at repeating the data. That way I've got a consistency, and if I choose to change the report in future, I don't have to come in and change every single field. I can change the one master field, and then that will automatically cascade around the system for me. Okay. So that's how nice and easy it is. Like I say, we'll come across back to here. And if we come into, sorry, I'm jumping around a bit here, report detail, as you can see, report classification. In this instance, we've got them all set to 1. And if we come back to, come here, report class. So 1, as you can see, is unclassified, which is the default one that the trigger inputs it in with. If I don't want that to, so if I want to change that value, for example, to say company confidential, which is a value of 3, I change, not seeing me do this, just cheating rather than writing the script. So here we go. We've got order summary, classification. We'll just change that to a 3. Okay. Minimize that, and then we come back and we have a look. That's supposed to have changed. Give me a moment. I've got the right report. Order summary, yes. You cheeky little beastie. Order summary, there we are. Report classification ID 3. Should have worked nicely. Let's have a quick look. Out here. No, it's not on that one yet. Sorry. Okay. I'm being flummoxed by my computer. Give me a second. So demo gods are not smiling on me at the moment. So that one is 3, which is there, which is what should have come through. Oh, deny. So let's try changing this one here to 3 as well. See if that works on my main report. This is not. Preview this, and we'll drill through, so I forgot to write down the order number for a specific one. That's why I changed it on the wrong RDL. Apologies. So, as you can see here, we've gone from having unclassified to company confidential. And I will store that for later. So, now that we've made these little changes, I'll come back to here. I'll just deploy this one here. So out it goes. So if we come out, and I'll just quickly refresh the page, which is there. So now look at the order summary. So we're looking at the same report again. This time we're actually out on the server itself. So as you can see, company confidential there. Now one of the things I mentioned earlier was the way that we can look at making changes without having to do deployments. So if I come back to Management Studio, I want to make that to what do we want to call that one? So let's say Customer Confidential for one of our reports. I want that one to be there, so that's saved now. Come back. So if we pick this one, and we'll drill through the reports as we did earlier. And customer confidential. Now, just to prove that I didn't set that one up already, is if we come back to here, go through, expand, and pick that one up, and you can see there that it's changed as well. So now we need to look at making some bigger changes that are a little bit more, shall we say, more dramatic. In this instance, we've got obviously the logo here, and we've got the formatting. So if we want to change logo, give me a second, we close all but this, and close that one down. So we'll just come back, and I go into report detail, report image, sales report. We change that to a 2. Oh, I got my numbers wrong. Where are we? Give me 1 second. That's the one I want. I wanted a 3, not a 2. Sorry. 3. Okay, that's changed. Now then, if we do that, just refreshing the report there, you can see we've managed to change the logo up in the top right. Okay, it's probably not the best one to be using in this instance because it's a bit squished. But as you saw there, I've just made the change. I didn't have to do a report deployment. I didn't have to go into Visual Studio. I didn't have to change it. So as we can see, it's probably not the best one. So maybe we want to look at changing that back. So if I come back in and say, yeah, actually, no, we only want to change that back to 1. Refresh, yeah, it's clearer what we've got in the report. Now that can be done whilst you've still got users using the system. So there's no need to kick them out. There's no need to take the system offline. You're not looking to lock anything whilst you do the deployments. Now the same goes for all of this formatting down the bottom here. I have got, as you saw earlier, 2 tablets configurations, 1 and 2. Check I've got the right numbers this time. So if we come down here, we decide actually we do want the new logo and a new color scheme to go with it. We make the changes here. Come back to our report server, and then fingers crossed when I hit this, we get a garish green one. As you can see, again, no deployments required, nothing like that. So makes life a lot easier. I don't know if it's something that people are interested in doing there, but again, it reduces a lot of management overhead involved, at least when I find in large-scale reporting deployments. And then finally, obviously, you've got the title here as well. So if we want to change that to say sales order detail, we make that look change. We come back to our report server, and in this instance, I just need to make the that's not worked. Why hasn't that? Okay, give me a second. Let's see. Okay, bear with me a second. This one should deploy. Sales report. Come on. I wonder if I had an old one out there. Let's have a look. Just copy that. Okay, now I'm being made to look a fool. Okay. Have I committed that? Okay. That's not part of the plan. Bear with me. Anyway, moving on swiftly. We'll close this down now. Right. As we can see, we'll come in. A little summary. We'll just see if it's going to behave itself this time. And that's dropped into the wrong report. Okay, my demo's gone a bit squiffy, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. And there we go. That's now finally picked up now that I've closed everything down. So, here we go. It's made the changes eventually. Right. So, coming back into here now. Excuse me. Sorry about that. That's pretty much all the driving behind it. As you can see, it is quite versatile. I've had a couple of issues here with my local machine, which has been a bit of a pest, but one of the things that I try to do anyway, is to make use of my own templates, which makes bringing people up to speed with this a lot easier, especially when it comes to setting the headers and so on and so forth. So what we'll do is we'll just come back to here and jump back onto the slides. I've gone to the wrong one again. Templates. You have the ability to create your own report templates, so you can take an existing RDL and then put it into Visual Studio so that you can actually, when you right-click Add New Item, you get the choice of your own templates in addition to the basic RDLs that you can have there. The directory that you can put them into is this one here. Obviously, Visual Studio 10, it depends on the version of Visual Studio that you're using. If you've got, obviously, previous versions, this number here will be different. So what we'll do is we'll quickly jump in and we'll show you how to do that now. In the Visual Studio environment here, in this instance, what we want is we will just come in, we'll take this one here. So if you give me a second, I will copy it. Yes, paste doesn't work from the right click, but it does when you go Control V. So, oops. So we'll call this one base template. As you can see, it's got bits and pieces in that we want. Well, what we don't want is any report information there. And we don't want that either. So what we do is I've taken an existing report and I'm just backing it down to the bare minimum that I'm after. In this instance, all I'm after here is a title, classification, logo, and some information here in the footer. So once we save that, it is a case of, oh, wrong one, come here. This one, I'll just copy and paste it from here, which should be easier. So as you can see, you've got report RDL, which means if I was to go right, add new item, report wizard, dataset, so on and so forth, that information is there. So where are we with that one? So what I will do is, if we jump into this, and then we come back to this one here. If we copy that to here, yes, thank you very much. So you can see we've now got that copied into there. Come back to Visual Studio, right click, add new item. There's our base template. So if I just type, give it a name so it comes in, so it's not called that. And there we go. And that automatically has all the data sets in there. The reason I've got the shared data sets. Did I copy the right one? I don't think I saved it. Either way, anyway, everything comes in with it. So embedded images, so on and so forth, which makes life a little bit. That's why I created the wrong one. I copied it off. Bear with me. I'll show you it working properly this time. If we take order summary, copy that to here. Yes, do that. This time we'll use the right one. Continue. Yeah, and we have that fixed, which means now, when I don't want that one, me get rid of that. Yep. This time, add new item, and I add the correct one. There we go. And it is just a bare one with the information in after it. No table in the middle, just the two report configuration data sets that I'm after. You can embed data sources as well, and they'll carry through. So yeah, it's that simple to create your own templates which you can then distribute amongst all of your report developers. Okay, so in summary, Shift F5, here we go. So what we can do with this is reduce the development overhead quite dramatically, as you can see, reducing the deployments, timescales, change control, that sort of thing. It's easier to make changes quicker to respond to things as they're needed by the business. Standardization across the board means you've not got people trying to remember the colors, configurations, the fonts, and so on and so forth that they need to do when they build these reports. And other than that, I mean, it's a reduction in the number of deployments, so less of an ops overhead as well in that respect. So having to actually schedule downtime or get people out of the system in order to make a deploy, whether, okay, if it's one or two reports, that's not too much of a headache, but if you're having to make global changes like I had to previously, rather than having to stage them over periods of time, it will bank them all up and say everybody out for a little while whilst we do the deployments and make sure everything's up and running. Just changing the colors and such like can be done very, very easily from the back. Now, I know we've rattled through this really, really quickly. A lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. I was just wondering if we have any questions at all. I don't know if, Jen, you've got any there? Cool.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Okay.
You can hear me, is that all right?
Yes, I can.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, that's good.
Yes, I can.
Thank you very, very much for that excellent session. I really enjoyed that. You've had some great feedback, I can see here. Thank you, Simeon, for your kind... Yeah, there's a few people here. Simeon, Alison and Joseph all saying well done, so thank you very much for those kind comments. I've got just a few questions. One is from Simeon, who asks, do spaces in the RDL name have the same issue as the full stop when rendering in Visual Studio?
I'm not sure, I'm afraid. I never use spaces. It was always trained. It was trained out of me. It's something for me to look at.
Yes, I must admit, I would tend not to use spaces either. Actually, I probably wouldn't use them, and that's going back to days when I used to look at Java.
Yeah, Java and the old sort of Unix and Linux systems I found as well. I've worked on in the past, but
exactly, something to try. I'm sorry, I would have to take that offline. I'm sorry, we don't know. I just would never use them.
What I'll do is I'll have a play with it this evening, and I'll get an answer for you. You can send out to the group afterwards if you want.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It's a good question. I'm sorry you've stumped us both, Simeon, so well done. The next question is from Ed. When setting the SQL query data source for your parameter values, wouldn't the stored procedure source give you better maintenance in case of future changes, or any comments?
Yes, it does. It will, and that's one of the next things on my list to do. I only really started putting this together in real anger about 2 months ago. Up on 2012, I'd left it alone for a good year or two. So yeah, stored procedures would give you a better maintenance there. It'd make life a lot easier. Just passing in that information and also sort of abstracting the code that's going on. You just call the stored procedure. So yes.
Thank you. And there's Joseph is asking if you could recommend a good reference for SSRS syntax. Have you got a preferred book, or?
I've recently got hold of the Reporting Services book by Stacia Misner. SSRS 2012. Give me 1 second. And I will quickly find it. I think it's just SSRS internals. I haven't got it in front of me. It's on my desk at work at the moment, I'm afraid. Yeah, Microsoft Reporting Service, Microsoft SQL Server 2012 Reporting Services by Stacia Misner. It's a very, very good book. I'm finding it's got an awful lot of very useful information in there. Other than that, books online is my go-to resource for it.
Okay, that's good, thank you. So Scott is asking if the documentation for this process is posted in a blog or other online location.
It will be soon.
Yes.
I'm in the process. I'm starting to get a blog put together at the moment, and it will be going up online probably in the next week or so. I need to get Cambridge out of the way first. It's consuming my life at the minute. But
yes.
yeah, by the end of September I'll have a blog up, and I'll be doing a number of posts on this. All of the source code for this is up on GitHub as well. If you just go to GitHub and search for SQL Server Monkey, you'll be able to find the repositories that I've got up there. And feel free to go and take it and run with it and do whatever you want.
That's great, that's very kind, thank you. I know you do give a lot to the SQL Server community here in the UK as well, so thank you very much.
Like I say, I'll make sure you've got all the slides, and I'll put the links to everything in there as well so that everybody can have them.
Thank you. Yes, that would be really kind of you, thank you. And you've answered the next question, which is people have been asking for the table schemas and that sort of thing, but if they go and look up SQL Server Monkey on GitHub.
SQL Server Monkey up on GitHub is me, but like I say, I will just get that URL sorted, and I'll get the slides out so you can email them out later today.
Thank you.
If you'd like. That's okay.
What we could probably do is I'll post up the presentation on bisequelpass.org, and then once your blog is live up and running, I can put a link up to your blog, and then people can head over to you to go and get them. That's probably the best thing.
Yep, that's fine.
And I think that's all of the questions. We just had some more thank yous come in from Hong and from Scott and Joseph again. So thank you very much.
That's right. That's okay. Thank you very much for taking the time. Sorry it was a little bit disjointed in places and my demos were a little bit awry, but I think it's the first time I've really presented this one properly. So.
Yeah, I wanted to say a special thank you actually. That was John's very first session for the BI SQL Pass chapter. So thank you very much. I know it's a bit nerve-wracking doing it the first time. In fact, it's nerve-wracking every time. But I wanted to say a special thank you for that. And yeah, Anthony says that you did great. Peter has given you a round of applause. Clap, clap, he said. And Mike says thank you. So that's really nice. And Alison as well. Brian. Yes, we've got loads of people saying thank you. So that's really lovely. So if you want to connect with John, you can do that on Twitter at SQL Server Monkey. And it just leaves me to say thank you very much, John, for an excellent session. And hopefully we'll persuade you to come back another time.
Yeah, would love to. So.
Thank you.
I will. What I'll do is I'll post up that link to GitHub on Twitter in a moment.
Ah, okay, thank you. I'll see it and I'll retweet you.
Indeed.
Alright, well thank you everybody for attending today. Thank you. A big thanks to John for his session and sharing all his code and everything. That's really good. And with that, wherever you are in the world, I wish you good morning, good evening and good night. And from us here in the UK, we wish you a pleasant evening. And our next session is on Friday at the same time with another British gentleman called Alan Mitchell. You seem to have been invaded by British people doing all sorts of SQL Server community events at the moment, but it's great. We have a really lively community here in the UK. And if anyone else would like to submit a session, you're more than welcome. We accept sessions all year round and we are a global chapter, so that means we are 24/7. So we have mentors all over the world who can help talk you through the session. And if you want to do that, our website is bi.sequelpass.org. And with that, I will wish you all good evening and we will hopefully see you again. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers. All the best. Bye.
Bye.